We are speaking with the one and only Doug Clifford of CCR, the new album with Mr. Wright, Steve Wright, I should say, of the Greg Kihn Band, is For All the Money in the World. Well, in fact, it's a new old album. Is that correct, Doug? And bonjour, as we say in Montreal.
Yes, that's sort of what it is. To me, it's a new album because it hasn't been exposed to the public. That's kind of how I make my judgments. It was, of course, recorded in the mid '80s, so that's the other side of the coin. But for all intents and purposes, it's new music because you haven't heard it before.
So talk to me about the process, because I've known a lot of bands and a lot of artists that make music and they rush it out, and then others, they make it and then 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Was this a project that you and Steve were just doing for fun, or was it meant to be released officially by a label and then something happened? What's sort of the story in this sort of 35-year delay?
Well, it was basically we were trying to get a record deal, and Steve and I were the writers of all the music for this project. And so what we wanted to do is have a kind of a nice general spread of what we could do songwriting wise. And if you want to do that, you want to have it produced as if it was going to be a record. So I produced it to sound like something you would hear on the radio, since I was trying to get the attention of labels. We weren't playing out though as a group, and we should have been, and I wanted to, but it just wasn't in the cards. So what happens in a situation like that, and we don't get the deal, and other things happened as well. I put it in Cosmo's vault, Cosmo being me. So I slapped it in my vault, and it's a vault full of master reels, which is a quarter-inch tape, and I don't have the multi-tracks to remix any of it, so I had to work within the confines of what we had on tape. But before we did that, we had to bake the tapes. That's a process.
Yeah.
We weren't baking brownies, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah, that whole baking thing is interesting. It always fascinates me that the technology wasn't smart enough that you could just sort of put it on a shelf and then stick it back. You actually have to start getting into cooking to get to hear your tapes, which is funny.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. There is oil within in the tape, and audio tape, especially back then, and it has to do with them sort of holding everything together. And I have certain, oh, I guess I got up close to 10 different albums from different people. I've got a couple of solo projects in there of mine. We've got the Clifford Wright record that we're talking about. We have Bobby Whitlock. Bobby Whitlock and I were the two writers in that project. Louis Ortega from the Sir Douglas Quintet, Doug Somm from the Sir Douglas Quintet. I have the multi-track of that one, but that's down the road. First things first. We don't want to get this one out. We think it's really strong, has a lot of potential hits. They just need to get some airplay, and that's what I'm out here
Trying to
doing.
do.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say I've listened to it, and it's funny because in the press release it said to me, could have been opening for Huey Lewis and the News. That's what the press release says. And I'm a huge, huge Huey Lewis fan. So as soon as I saw that, I went, oh, really? All right. And I listened to it and I went, yeah, this would fit. It is very fun, upbeat. I don't want to say it sounds like Huey Lewis, but it is that sort of fun, upbeat. It would have been a great evening if those two bands had been on the same bill. So yeah, I think fans will dig it.
Well, Huey's an dear old friend of mine, and I need to give him a call and see how he's doing. He's had some problems,
With his
uh,
ears.
and with his exactly, and that's a bad problem to have if you're a musician.
Yeah.
So thanks for reminding me. I need to get a
Well,
call.
Not that I want to make this all about Huey Lewis, but it has essentially stopped his career. He can't tour.
Yeah.
He can't even record because he says in interviews that putting on the headphones and just drives him crazy. He just can't. Horrible way to end your career, quite frankly.
Well, it's not over yet. It's not over till that fat lady gets up there and, breaks a few crystal glasses.
Yep, and thank God for modern technology because I'm sure they will come up with something. They have to. The world needs Huey Lewis, and when you call him, have him call me. I haven't done an interview with him yet, but I've interviewed Johnny a bunch of times, Johnny Cola. In terms of this release, somewhere around the mid '90s, you had essentially said, "I'm retired from this business. I'm done." And then you got the version of CCR going, and you did a whole bunch of shows, almost 100 shows a year. Is this something where you're interested in playing shows? Now, I know Steve passed away, and may he rest in peace, but do you want to get these songs to an audience in some form to say, hey, music's meant to be played live?
Well, my live career is over. I have Parkinson's, and
Oh, wow.
I can play shake, rattle, and roll, and that's about it. So that's one of many reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Gotcha.
Starting my own label, it's kind of fun. That's it'll be the first record company that I won't have to audit. So
yeah, forensic accounting is not a great.
That in itself is worth all the effort. But no, I also have Bob Frank and Sony Orchard. So I have the big distributor with Sony and Bob's years of experience, and my label where I can call the shots and not have it be the other way around. So it's kind of a real nifty plan of action, and it's something that I'll only play songs that I've written or co-written, and so it becomes a publishing sort of driven entity, and we'll see how it goes. But right now, I really think that we have a winner with the for all
The
the
album. Yeah, I don't disagree. Let me just quickly ask you then: do you own all your publishing? Is that something that you hold on to tight? Is it something that you're wanting to sell because a lot of artists are selling their publishing, or you're not interested?
Right now, I'm not interested because
Okay.
I'm just getting started with it, and I've got a lot of songs that are really good, and they're good because I have good people around me.
Yep.
You look at the roster of who's on this record. I mean, just the guitarists. I've got Joe
Joe.
Satriani.
Yeah.
I've got Jimmy Lyon. I've got Greg Douglas. I mean, if you're a guitar guy from the well, they're all doing well, and it's and then I've got a great singer, an unknown in Keith England. I think you probably agree with me that he really
I
embodies
do.
every song. And as a songwriter, when I give him the song and I sing it for him, here's how the melody goes. Here's how, I feel kind of silly, but he paid close attention and put his touch on it. And I just another reason that I'd like to see this project be successful is for him to have his first gold and platinum album. It would be really great for Keith England, who I think really deserves it with his performance on the record.
I don't. I won't dispute that the record. And I'm not a guitar guy. I'm not a drum guy. I'm a vocal guy. If I like the vocalist, I will excuse a lot of other stuff. I'll excuse a missed note or a missed beat. But I need a vocalist. I need a Steven Tyler. And this guy's got it because I listened to this album and I enjoyed it. And if the vocalist turns me off, I don't care how good the music is, I turn it off. And this guy, I didn't turn off. So to me, that's all you need to know.
Well, it's a good thing to know, and you're right. And I was throwing the praises out uh, to Keith, and he's still doing it. I've had my dream come true many times over with Creedence Clearwater Revival, starting when we were 13, and taking 10 years for us to have our first hit. But uh, that opened up many doors. And then Stu and I had revisited for 25 years, touring for 25 years, every year, nonstop. You know, that kind of surprised us. We were hoping to get 4 years out of it. And we were never going to record in that project, but the fans said we want a CD to take home after the show.
Yeah,
And
Recollection, recorded in Western Canada, by the way, and I'm up in Montreal, so props to the home team.
you have done your homework, sir.
I have. I
Yeah,
always do.
well, that's good. You know, not everybody does, and you really have to. And you know that if I might interject something about dreams, the
Yep.
reality of dreams. The reality of dreams are that if you're sitting on the couch and say, I want to be a rock star," you know, no, nothing's going to happen. You have, if you want to be a rock star, you better get an instrument and become an expert on that instrument. You better have a game plan and a manager or a lawyer that you can trust. How about that one?
And some business acumen. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize it's the music business. They strap on a guitar and say, "I'm going to be a rock star," and then it's like, yeah, about that.
Yeah. And to answer a question for the back, yeah, I have 100% of my
Publishing.
publishing, and that's a perfect example of it right there. So you have to pay attention to any dream, whether it be it doesn't necessarily have to be music. You have to work and work as hard as you can. Work your fingers down to the nubs, and do everything you can to possibly have that dream come true. So if you're going to be a dreamer, you're going to have to be a guy that picks the dream that he can be passionate about and go down the road with, busting his ass to make it so.
Kind of think if rock reporter was my dream, but I do bust my ass. Just real quick, just real quick on that. Sorry, not on the live record. On Joe Satriani. Of course, back in 1986, he wasn't Joe Satriani as we think of him now. He wasn't necessarily a rookie, but he was up and coming. Talk to me about how that came about. Was it just that you sort of lived in the same area, or did you seek him out? Did you hear him and say, "Ooh, I have to get this guy"? Talk to me about working with Joe, and do you still talk to Joe?
Um, Joe was in the Greg Kihn Band. All the guitar players that I just mentioned, they were all at one time or another in the Greg Kihn Band. Steve Wright was the Greg Kihn Band's bass player
For
and
many years. Yeah.
songwriter. So he came. We were looking to fill that spot, and so I was doing a session, and Richie Corsello, a recording engineer friend of ours, who brought Keith England in. What a nice thing to do, and then brought Joe in. So I asked Joe if he would want to join the band. And he said, "No, I'm going to do a heavy metal instrumental album." And we all rolled our eyes. "Good luck with that, buddy." And last laughs are always the best laugh.
Yeah.
And he got us with that one.
Yeah. Now, have you mentioned this release to Joe? And by the way, let's tell the folks the album comes out on August 27th, which happens to be my birthday of all things. So I'm getting well, not a new CCR, but I'm getting a new Doug Clifford record for my birthday. So that absolutely works for me. Did you get a chance to talk to Joe about this? Did any of this get reworked? Did you come in and add some drums, or were things fixed, or is this really the album that was in the vault?
It was for the most part the album that was in the vault, but I did do some Pro Tool work,
Good.
and the executive producer on this album is a fellow named Russell DeShiel. He was in the Don Harrison band. That's where I first met him, and played on that record, of course. But he's also a great lead guitar player, and I have a solo album that he played lead guitar on and engineered. So he's a great technical guy, and so I brought his prowess in to do the make the moves on Pro Tools, because I knew what I wanted, but I'm not a Pro Tools guy. So here's Russell, and he also is knowledgeable in the business, and we talk a lot about strategy and things and what's happening here and there, and so and he's an old friend, so he's the executive producer on this project. And we did do, in fact, on one of on my solo album, he did a whole new rhythm guitar track. Most of what we did though was using frequencies to bring things out. In other words, if I wanted to bring the snare drum up, I had to find what the frequency of that snare drum was in, and then work accordingly, put it in as much as I can. But the downside of that is everything else that's in that frequency will be boosted. So, and you may not want to do that. So it's a very artful thing that you need to do with that. And I really like having the producer's hat on, saying, I would like to have this done, and also the songwriter and this done, and have a guy that you trust say, I can take it this far. So you listen, take a listen, show A and B it, and I go, yeah, that's just about perfect.
Yeah,
We did it. Thanks to, we cut a verse or two out of it. There was a song, and I said, that's that. I think that verse has been said and sung one too many times. Snip.
snip. Out it goes. Out it goes. Last year when we spoke, we were talking about the 50th anniversary of Cosmos Factory. And of course, the pandemic sort of overshadowed that because it came out in July. And in July, we were in the throes of the pandemic. And I think people just sort of went, well, that's nice, but there's a pandemic. Just a quick word on that, because one of my favorite bands is a band from England called Thunder. And they do Up Around the Bend. They have two versions of the song, and I was actually listening to it this week, their version, and that song just endures. It doesn't matter who sings it. It doesn't matter who records it. It just works, whether it's a female voice, a male voice. It just works. Just a quick memory on the 50th anniversary that sort of got glossed over last year.
Well, yeah, of course, that is was our biggest. That was our Sergeant Pepper.
Yep.
In other words,
It's a great album.
Pinnacle of our career, and there were 6 singles on there. We had we had 5 double-sided hits. In other words, for your audience,
A and B.
Both sides were A sides. We didn't do it on purpose. People said, "How do you pick them? How do you know?" We said, "We don't know. We just pick what we think is an A side, put it in there, and then take something else that we think might go well with it, or be totally different than it, for whatever the reason." But every time they go out, they end up both charting and both, it cuts your time in half. In other words, because you have the time of 2 singles pushed into the time of 1. So that really quickened the pace of our recording, and we did put out 3 albums in '69. So yeah,
the good old days. By the way, let me just quickly ask you on Cosmos Factory, and then I'll get back to the vault here. But most of the songs are 2-3 minutes, and don't bore us. Get to the chorus. We're in. We're out. But you've got a couple that are 7 minutes, 11 minutes. How did that come about in the studio, where you're saying, all right, we're going to make these 3-minute radio-friendly singles, boom, boom, but now we're going to do this 11-minute masterpiece? How did that sort of come about? Why was not everything either, like a Genesis album of 15 minutes, or why was everything not just like a Beatles 2.5 in and out, let's go?
Well, that was our peers in the Bay Area. That was the age of psychedelia, and our peers laughed at us, called us Boy Scouts of rock and roll. Said we were sold out singles band, and
so what? Try to pay the rent with the peace love thing.
They said
takes cash.
Well, here's what we did. For years we stayed with the genre that we ended up with, that is going to outlive me and and continue generationally down the line. Uh, we didn't really think what they were doing was something that was appealing to us. We like making records that you can get in and get out and go to the next, and then that way you have a variety of things that you can do, and you're not doing the same thing all the time, making 3-minute songs into 20-minute songs, as our peers were. So we had heard all this and that, and so we said, hey, let's take Grapevine, a song that had been a #1 hit twice, and let's take, everybody knows this song, and let's stretch out. Let's stretch out. We'll do it just because we can. And that was sort of it, sort of, hey, well, Boy Scouts of rock and roll can boogie too. And the funny thing about it is I ran into Spencer Dryden like 20 years after the fact, and he said, oh man, he says, we hated you guys, and we put you down, but we hated you because every song you put out was a hit single. He said we were trying to put a single together the whole time that the band was together. We could not break that wall, and so the truth comes out. It was a sort of a war of words of envy, as
Yep.
it turned out, and. I said, thanks for being honest about it. I said, it really didn't bother us because your description was accurate. We were a singles band. That's what we cut our teeth on. That's, one note too long is two notes too long. Is kind of the
I
way we
agree.
look at it.
And
And
by the way, the reason why we're speaking 50 years later is because you are a singles band and you had popularity and people care. People
yeah,
like singles. I mean, you know.
they do. They do, and the great majority, and we weren't going to do something that wasn't us just because it was popular. Because we did that our entire career. It took us 10 years before we had our first hit record, and that's because we weren't ready until we had Susie Q. But
Great song.
that song was a rockabilly song initially, and I put that dance groove to it, quarter note groove to give it power by taking out half the notes. How about that?
Yeah. Less is
Yeah,
more. Less is
less is
more.
more. Less is more. It proves itself over and over again.
It really does. I mean, I'm looking at the time listing of Traveling Band, and I'm looking at the time listing of or Up Around the Bend. There's 2 minutes 7 and 2 minutes 40. I mean, if those songs were 6 minutes no, I don't think we'd be remembering them right now. No offense, it
We wouldn't be. We wouldn't be.
wouldn't be.
There's a perfect time, perfect baking time, and I'm not talking about tapes now. Where it's like in the oven. If any difference on either side, either too much or too little, uh, you, the songs were the length of time for each song. It was tailor made, like a fine suit, and we're sort of masters at that, but it took 10 years to do it. So we stayed the course on where we wanted to go, and what we wanted to do. It was roots American music. People would say, oh, it's Bayou Rock, it's this and that. I said, no, it's roots American music. That's what it really is. And
Yeah.
so you can tag anything you want to. Yeah, some of it might sound like it's from the Bayou, and no, we had never been out of California in our lives. But it was our ears that were doing our direction finding, and that's what we did. We paid close attention to the music that we wanted to play in that direction, and kept working at it, fine tuning, trimming. Don't let that note that's coming up here be any less than the note behind it.
Yeah.
So,
And getting it right. And I have to say, listen, when that album came out, I was 2 years old, so it was not part of my world until much, much later. But like I said, bands that I listened to, I grew up on Def Leppard. I grew up on Thunder. Thunder covers Up Around the Bend. Def Leppard covers Traveling Band. I mean, it affected the music that I listened to in my bands. So, props to that. Now, let me just quickly get back to the vault before we wrap up. This release comes out August 27th. What's next? You mentioned that the vault was sort of overflowing. Are you going to do like a release a year, a release every 6 months? We'll see how this one does before we think about the next. What's sort of the game plan?
yeah, the game plan is the last thing you said. We'll judge our next move on the last move on the record that we're working on. I'm hoping that for all the money as an album and as a single will get legs, and we just need people to hear it. If people hear it, they're going to like it, and the majority will anyway. And that's what I've been finding out in the broadcasts that I've been doing. Everybody says the same thing. It sounds like it could have been written last week, or so it's not necessary. And that's why I say it's not old music, because it's unheard, the actual art of it. In terms of years, yeah, we had to bake the damn thing. So yeah, it's old that way, but it's not old as an art form. People can hear it and think it's a new band that's out there. So I'm not going to say, oh, every year I'll put something out. I'll know when it's time to put the next one out, and hopefully it'll be a long time from now. We'll get some life out of
This one.
This one, because I think it's got a lot, especially nowadays. We need that kind of rock and roll out there. And as you alluded to, Huey, and he's a dear old friend. That's the spirit of the kind of rock and roll that I'm after, and
Huey's one of the greatest artists ever. I'll just gonna say that I love everything about Huey.
I'm with you.
Yep.
I'm with you. I think this record.
Pardon me?
I think I ought to send him a copy of this record.
You should, and you should pick up his last record, Weather, which came out last year or 2 years ago. It's great. It's fantastic. For all the money in the world, I should say, released August 27th on my birthday. Thank you. Is it just digital? Are we doing vinyl? Are we doing CD? Are we doing the whole physical format? Because for me, if it ain't physical, it don't exist.
Yeah. Oh, I'm 100% with you. Yes. We're doing any and all. Right now I'm.
Oh, that's what I like to see.
There we go.
You see, look at this. I don't have yours right in front of me, but see, sitting right here, I got my pile of. Oh, you can't see it because of the thing, but I got my pile of CDs. If it ain't physical, it don't exist, and that exists.
I'm exactly with you, and it will also be out on vinyl. Vinyl will be the last thing we do, because there are a number of hoops that are required to do it right, and I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I'm with you. I want it to be able to be played in anybody's living room with whatever setup they have, and that's the way it should be. I don't want to limit our airplay or listening time, because I didn't.
Yeah, I'm gonna get one of those, guaranteed. I am gonna buy one of those as soon as we're done here. Well, there you go, Doug. Always a pleasure, and we did it last year. We did it this year. Let's do another one as soon as you can.
Well, I'm more than happy to do so. Today is the release of our second single, "I Need Your Love," which is the second song on the album. So there's another single out there to be listened to,
and the videos are on YouTube, by the way, folks. You can head over to YouTube and look those up.
Yep.
So you see, let's see here, just real quick. It's called Clifford Wright, right?
Well, Steve Wright and I
Just occurs to me that if they're going to look for it on YouTube, they should know the band's name. It would help.
Yeah. I think if you put and then Cosmo is my vault. So
right.
Cosmo's vault. We're going to kind of keep that as like a series, and things will be coming out of the vault. And there are still many gems in there, but we got to give each one its due. We got to let it be heard.
Yep, you got to let it get out there to the world. As we say in Montreal, merci beaucoup. Thank you so much.
That's true. I can say it, but not right now. I'm laughing at myself.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Thanks, Mitch.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That was perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome.